When building a startup, the product may capture attention, the market may excite investors, and the vision may inspire your team. But underneath it all, equity is what defines ownership and control. Equity decisions shape who benefits from success, who carries the risks, and how aligned your team will be as the journey unfolds. These choices are not abstract, they directly affect incentives, fundraising, and company survival. Poorly structured equity can spark conflicts, scare away investors, and even cause startups to collapse. Properly structured equity, on the other hand, unites founders, employees, and investors around long term value creation. Today, we'll explore how to split equity fairly, how vesting schedules protect the company, and why maintaining a clean, transparent cap table is one of the most important responsibilities of any founder. Equity matters because it is the foundation of ownership. It defines who controls decisions, who reaps the rewards of growth, and who bears the consequences of failure. Unlike salaries, equity ties people directly to the company's long term outcome. The first reason equity is critical is ownership foundation. Equity is not just a financial instrument, it is the DNA of decision making power. Whoever owns shares ultimately controls votes and determines the company's future. The second is incentive alignment. Startups are hard, and cash is often limited. Equity allows you to motivate and retain co founders, employees, and advisors by giving them a real stake in the upside. When equity is structured properly, everyone rows in the same direction because they share in the rewards. The third is future consequences. Early equity mistakes compound over time. A hasty handshake deal, an unbalanced split, or sloppy record keeping may seem harmless in the early days, but can create resentment, disputes, and investor concerns later. These problems are far more expensive to fix down the road than they are to prevent upfront. Finally, equity management lives in the cap table, the definitive map of who owns what. A clean cap table is one of the most important strategic documents in a startup. It tells the story of ownership, dilution, and alignment. In short, equity is not just a number, it's your company's foundation, its story, and its future. One of the first equity decisions is how to divide ownership among founders. This is often one of the most emotionally charged and strategically important conversations you'll have. The first principle is evaluate contributions honestly. Many founders default to a 50-50 split out of convenience or a desire for fairness. But equal splits can be dangerous if contributions, risks, and commitments aren't equal. Instead, base splits on roles, effort, expertise, and long term dedication. A technical co founder who builds the product may deserve a larger stake than an advisor who spends only a few hours a month. The second principle is document formally. Handshake deals are accidents waiting to happen. What feels friendly today can turn into bitter conflict tomorrow. From the beginning, equity decisions must be legally binding agreements to prevent disputes when stakes rise. The third principle is plan for dilution. Ownership percentages shrink with every fundraising round as new investors enter the cap table. If founders don't anticipate this, they may be shocked to find themselves with significantly less control over time. Planning ahead ensures everyone understands how dilution works and how it impacts control dynamics. The fourth principle is maintain transparency. Equity conversations can be difficult, but hiding or avoiding them leads to resentment. Clear, open discussions in the early days prevent co founder disputes that can derail companies later. The red flag here is equal splits by default. What feels easy today can breed resentment tomorrow if one founder feels they're contributing more but owning the same. The best approach is to recognize reality early, make thoughtful decisions, and document them properly. Vesting schedules are one of the most important protections for startups. They ensure that equity is earned over time rather than given away upfront. The standard model is the 4-year vesting schedule with a 1-year cliff. For the first year, no equity vests. This protects the company if a co founder leaves early. After the first year, 25% of the equity vests at once, the cliff. The remaining equity then vests monthly over the next 3 years. This structure has several benefits. First, it encourages long term commitment. Co founders, employees, and advisors are incentivized to stay and contribute consistently over several years. Second, it protects the company from early departures. Without vesting, a co founder could leave after 6 months, but still own a huge stake, creating dead weight on the cap table. Third, it establishes fairness. Equity is tied to continued service and contribution, not just initial enthusiasm. Importantly, vesting applies not only to founders but also to employees, advisors, and consultants receiving equity. It creates a culture of commitment and ensures that ownership aligns with effort over time. The message is clear. If you're giving equity without vesting, you're gambling with your company's future. Vesting is not just protection, it's a framework for fairness and sustainability. The cap table, short for capitalization table, is the document that records ownership distribution. It is the single source of truth for who owns what. The first element is ownership distribution. A clean cap table shows exactly how much equity each founder, employee, and investor owns, as well as the size of the option pool reserved for future hires. The second element is valuation terms. Cap tables track critical numbers like pre-money valuation, post-money valuation, and dilution across funding rounds. These terms help founders and investors understand how ownership shifts after each round. The third element is investor readiness. Investors scrutinize cap tables during due diligence. A messy, inaccurate, or overly complicated cap table raises red flags and slows down funding. A clean, professional cap table signals discipline and transparency. Fortunately, there are tools that make this easier. Platforms like Carta, Pulley, and CapTable.io automate equity tracking, compliance, and reporting. They provide professional-grade cap table management, saving time and reducing risk. Think of your cap table as both a financial record and a story. It's the narrative of how ownership evolves, how trust is distributed, and how aligned your team remains. Keeping it clean is not optional, it's essential. Let's look at real-world lessons in equity management. Success story: Airbnb. The Airbnb founders implemented proper vesting schedules from day one. This decision protected the company when early co-founders departed. Without vesting, those individuals might have walked away with large stakes despite minimal contribution. With vesting, the company safeguarded its equity for those truly committed. Common mistake: early exit issues. In many startups, a co-founder leaves early but retains a large stake. This creates dead equity, ownership tied to someone no longer contributing. Such scenarios create dilution concerns that scare investors, who prefer cap tables where active contributors hold the majority of equity. From these examples, we can distill best practices. Always document equity decisions legally from the start. Implement standard 4-year vesting with a 1-year cliff. Reserve 15 to 20% of equity for the employee option pool early. Keep the cap table simple, transparent, and investor ready. Following these practices doesn't just avoid problems, it actively builds trust with employees, co-founders, and investors. It signals professionalism, discipline, and foresight. Equity is not just about percentages on paper. It's about aligning incentives, protecting the company, and ensuring fairness over time. Founder equity splits, must reflect real contributions, not just convenience. Vesting schedules ensure that ownership is earned, not given away prematurely. Cap tables provide the definitive record of ownership, valuation, and dilution, and keeping them clean is critical for investor confidence. The lessons from Airbnb's foresight and the cautionary tales of poorly structured equity all point to the same truth. Equity decisions are some of the most important choices you'll ever make as a founder. Get them right, and you create a culture of fairness, alignment, and sustainability. Get them wrong, and you risk conflict, dilution, and lost opportunities. The final takeaway is this: treat equity with the seriousness it deserves. Document it, vest it, track it, and keep it transparent. Equity is more than ownership, it's the glue that holds your startup together, the incentive that drives performance, and the foundation for long term success.